Welcome to Stream After Hours, featuring Sarah Ozanne and Jenkins Bender.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jenkins Bender. I am a senior development analyst supporting the industrial and office teams at Stream Realty. I'm here talking today with Sarah Ozanne to learn a little bit more about her career path. So, Sarah, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Sarah Ozanne. I'm a senior vice president here, work on the industrial leasing team. Been at Stream for about 8 years.
Sarah, can you tell me a little bit more about your role today and kind of what your progression has looked like within Stream specifically?
Sure. Yeah. So my story, I think overall is a little bit unique, or at least in my mind it is, and maybe it's not if you take a look at the industry as a whole. But I actually started out on the principal side. I worked at Goldman Sachs for 8 years, all in real estate. I kind of grew up in the warehouse world because of my father and knew that was the career path I was interested in, but was never a salesperson, not outgoing, not personable, none of the things that brokers in my mind were. And so I thought, well, I'm definitely going to be on the principal side and really enjoyed the strategic and analytic piece, but was ready to do something different about 8 years ago. And so came over to Stream for a variety of reasons. One, they have had a huge industrial presence in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for over 25 years now. And then also, I only had to talk to a handful of people before I realized that this is a really smart group of people. And so getting to speak with them and realize that this was a different way of looking at the business, but just the other side of the table, realized that this was a good move. Decided to become an industrial leasing broker. Said I would do it for 2 years and hate it and be terrible at it. And 8 years later, here we are. I don't hate it. I actually very much enjoy it. We'll see how good I am at it, but they haven't gotten rid of me yet.
Awesome. I feel like you have a very unique path into the industry. Do you feel like, or I guess, how do you feel like your experience at Goldman differentiates you as a broker in this industry? Because I feel like that's a very atypical skill set that you're bringing to the table.
Sure. Yeah. I've always said it's kind of two different personalities, or at least two different sides of one personality. But, I think the biggest thing for me is all I want as I'm working on institutional leasing and working with clients on their investments is for them to feel like they can trust me and trust what I say. And a lot of that comes from competence and understanding kind of their position. I know what it's like to sit through business plans. I know what it's like to go to investment committee. I know all of the components that go into reporting and, asset managing an investment or selling an investment. And so, when I'm advising clients, the way I think about it is, okay, how can I put myself in their shoes and what do I recommend in a way that, meets the needs of that building, investment, client profile. Ultimately, there's a lot of different pieces. And since I had the personal experience of doing that on the front end, I think it makes it a little bit easier for me to speak to that now when I'm speaking to clients.
When you started off at Stream on the brokerage side, what did your role look like then? How has that evolved over time to your role today?
Sure. So the great thing about Stream is it's super entrepreneurial, and people always say that when they're pitching you to come join, but they actually mean it. And so, we're assigned a sub-market and told to go get it. So if that's tenant rep, go make tenant calls. If that's institutional leasing, go meet the building owners. If that's selling something, whatever it takes, if that's land, go to that sub-market and learn everything you can and become a master of it. And so, at the beginning, I was making cold calls on tenants and warehouses. And I will tell you, from a job where I sat in a investment bank and looked at spreadsheets all day and then was knocking on doors in Arlington, Texas, was a little bit of a different move for me, but also had some exposure to the leasing side, and kind of over the years have continued to do both. I would say probably 75 to 80% of my work is really now institutional leasing as my client base has grown and knowledge has grown. And I think anybody, as you kind of develop into your career, you figure out what you like and what you're best at. And, for me, that's really working with groups on buying or developing a building and leasing it and seeing successful stabilization of an asset.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like everybody definitely looks up to you at Stream, and you're very admired company-wide.
Well, that's ridiculous, because it's actually Jenkins that should be interviewed. And I said that before, but no one listened to me.
Not at all.
I've said many times I'm a decade older and I still want to be here when I grow up. So
That's completely the opposite way around. But tell us a little bit about, I guess, what your day to day looks like or your week to week, because I know that typically in a brokerage position, especially, but in a lot of real estate positions, you kind of have your plan, and then that is not at all what ends up happening and where your priorities need to be. So how do you manage and balance your calendar?
Yes. I mean, certainly, I think the phrase every day is different is, just kind of silly. Of course, we all have things that we do every day. I would say, the majority of my time is spent in kind of three realms. One is, and most importantly for my clients, is transacting. So making sure that proposals go out, making sure that deals actually get done. We can tour a building all day long, or I can do business development, but if the building's not leased, then no one cares about the rest of it. So, that's the biggest component for me is, when I start and finish my day, to make sure that everyone has what they need from a recommendation or a counter or a proposal. That's a huge component of successful leasing. And then, a lot of the other components, obviously I'm out showing buildings a lot, lease about 23 million square feet across the northwest part of Dallas. And so lots of tours. And then finally, obviously I want to be talking to clients. I want to know what's in the market. I view my value as kind of what I know and who I know in the market. And that information is, that doesn't always come naturally. That's gotten by lunches and coffees and being in the market and seeing deals and talking to folks and making sure that I understand kind of where the market is. Over the past 2 to 3 years, especially the industrial world has changed very, very quickly. And if you look back at data, or you look at last quarter's data or last year's comps, you'll be 20% behind where you need to be. And so have felt that it's more important now than ever to have a really good pulse on what's going on in the market.
Yeah. And I feel like you do a great job of disseminating and bifurcating that information to make it very easily digestible for the people within Stream. That's a great value add to lots of different teams.
Thanks. Yeah, I try. I think obviously I understand that, especially in a changing economic time, a lot of our clients are getting a lot of questions about how things are going and what are you seeing, and is tenant demand slowing down, and is it changing? What are you seeing from the new developments? All of that kind of stuff, and those questions are coming up, daily and weekly for a lot of clients and for us. And so, to me, this is a Stream industrial platform deal. We want to have the best market data, and we want to be able to provide it in ways that are helpful for whatever client we're looking at.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'd love to dig in a little bit more into your 23 million square foot portfolio. That's super impressive. Where in Dallas are those properties mainly located? Do you have an area of expertise? Has that changed over time?
Sure. Yeah. And I need to say, that is a team effort. There is nothing about this that is the Sarah Ozanne building by any stretch. Stream has an incredible platform. People that have come before me have built incredible relationships and won business over 25 years that a lot of us here today benefit from. So by no means can I say, let's go put my face on the top of all of these buildings, but have an incredible partnership and incredible teammates that I get to work with every day who know the market and know the tenants and the clients, in some cases even better than me. And so, very grateful for that. But what I would say is, my home turf is kind of Northwest Dallas. So DFW Airport, Valwood, Louisville, and then over, as of the last couple of years, have worked with our incredible Fort Worth team on the North Fort Worth and Meacham Fossil Creek product. So, as the market has changed, as submarkets have become more and more built out, we kind of look and we see that deals, clients, the markets are really, submarkets are really kind of starting to blend together. And so having a good reach across several submarkets and having good relationships amongst, a team of us who do a lot of the same kind of leasing for the same kind of clients is very important.
What are the biggest misconceptions that people have about your role?
Well, I'll tell you, my biggest conception before I came to Stream was, and this was just kind of a general thing, like, oh, brokers are super nice and friendly, but they're pretty dumb. They don't, they're just kind of, they don't really know what they're doing. And there was a lot of that. And I won't say anything about who was saying that. There was just a perception. And I got to Stream and I was like, holy cows, these people are very, very smart, and not just personality and EQ smart, but IQ smart. And so I think one thing that's that's important to keep in mind is that once you know a thing, once you know a piece of market information, it's very easy to take for granted that you have that information in your brain. But if you don't know that assumption or you don't know that market piece, then, you're really kind of in trouble. And so, part of what we do is we try to share a lot of information and bring a lot of value to what we know to be true about the market. And, I think there can be a little bit of a misconception that like, oh, they're just kind of showing buildings and pushing paper around. And the reality is I think we have a bigger role to play, and that, we can be intelligent, strategic advisors on deals.
Yes, I definitely think information's one of the most important currencies, especially from the brokerage side, to be a value add to your clients. Do you feel like that has really aided in you being able to forge really strong relationships and win deals? And then what else would you say has differentiated you or the Stream team in competing for deals?
Yeah, I think, I try to operate my business, and I've said this to everyone I've ever met, so I'm sure it's been I've said it to you, but, I really try to operate kind of my life, but certainly my business with two things being excellence and integrity. And so, I'm never going to send an email to a client saying, hey, the guy said this, what do you want to do? There's going to be a recommendation. And when we have good news and bad news, our clients are going to hear it first. And this is true of the industrial platform. But, I think those two components make us very trustworthy. So they know we can do excellent work. They know we're competent, that we're going to strive for the best for the asset or the deal or whatever the case is. And then, we operate with integrity, and I operate with integrity. So what I'm telling you is true, and I'm advising you in the best way that I know how. And so you can trust that this deal is going to go the way we hope it does. And if it doesn't, you're going to hear from me first. And, those two components, I think, help us get hired again, because once you work with us, you realize that we are trustworthy and that we know our stuff.
I definitely think those are great two things to live your life by. And that's very evident in the way that you conduct your business, and obviously a testament to your portfolio in Dallas that you've lived that out with all of your client interactions. How do you stay motivated in this career path? I feel like brokerage is very self-motivated career. Being in this industry line for 8 years and counting, what keeps you engaged?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think in any role where you eat what you kill, there's a pretty easy motivation, and that if you don't work, you don't pay your mortgage. So I think obviously there's some motivation to close deals. At the end of the day, we want to do great work for our clients. We don't work for free. We have to close deals in order to get paid. So there's an easy motivation right there. But I would tell you also that Stream fosters a really good sense of healthy competition, really quick to push us on, what are our goals each year, and not just a number money goal, but, type of transaction goals or personal goals. And, we all push each other there. There's a ton of attaboys and good jobs when you do that. So I think it's a positive culture, but we all are pushing each other to think creatively and look for the next deal and how else can we add value, and not just, oh, I've got to go lease this building today, but oh, it looks like that land over there is changing or the ownership's changing, just kind of thinking creatively about how we can do the next thing. And that's part of the benefit of a pretty open or not restricted job description. So if I find a tenant to go represent, I go represent a tenant. If I find a building to sell, I go sell a building. And so there's nothing that says, unlike maybe a more institutional firm, brokerage firm, there's nothing that says I have to hand a piece of business off. And so that means that I get to lease big warehouses at the airport, and I also get to go to Indianapolis and help a tenant find, a new cold warehouse there. And so that alone, I think, keeps things interesting. And then from a motivation, I don't think you can get into brokerage unless you're willing to really kind of create your own goals, create your own structure for the day, which, I'll admit is hard sometimes to create, how am I going to go order my day to be profitable, to make the company money, to make myself money, to make my clients happy. You've got to understand how to prioritize and, kind of resist the urge to do the easy stuff first. And, I think that brokerage draws the person that's willing to do some of those things just kind of inherently.
Do you have a typical daily routine that you go through, I guess, personally and professionally?
Yes, I do. So the thing that makes everyone think I'm crazy, and I don't disagree with them, I wake up at 3:53 a.m.
Oh my gosh. What time do you go to bed?
And that's the next question everyone asks. I try to go to bed by 9. I have 3 little boys at home, and they wake up whenever the heck they want. And so I wake up to try to be out the door by 4 a.m. to run. and I run in the dark and, oh, it's so dangerous. I'm aware. I haven't died yet. 15, 16 years in, we're still going strong. So knock on wood for me, but run outside every morning and try to get home and get cleaned up and have a few minutes to myself before everybody wakes up. Obviously, with 3 little kids at home, the one thing that, I have said, especially lately, is there's not a whole lot of margin for silliness aside from silliness with my kids. So, I try to be super efficient when I'm in the office. If I've got tours or meetings elsewhere, I'm not going to drive all around town just to drive all around town. I'm going to be where I need to be. And then if I can find a coffee shop or a hot spot in my car, I'm going to do that. I'm really trying to be very efficient with my time. But typically, go into the office in the mornings, kind of clean up whatever needs to get cleaned up from the night before. A lot of showings and phone calls kind of mid-morning time, get proposals out, touch base with clients that need information, usually have lunch. I would say 4 days, if not 5 out of 5, I have lunch with clients or pursuits or, friends in the industry. Usually try to have a business lunch out, if not a coffee meeting in the morning. And then, for the most part, I'd say the afternoons are a lot of tours and meetings kind of out and about. And then usually wrap up the day with kind of that same paperwork. What needs to get done today? What needs to get out? Any phone calls I need to return? I get home. I'm pretty religious about getting home by 6, not just to let our nanny go home, but also because my kids go to bed. They're little. They go to bed at 7:30, and I want to make sure that I have kind of an hour in the morning and an hour and a half in the evening with them. They're obviously more than anything in the world my priority, and need to make sure that all 3 of them get the attention that they need, which is hard. So try to stick to a 6 p.m. Of course, client happy hours and events come up. I have an awesome husband, but to step in, but that's kind of the big priority for me.
3:53. I won't forget that.
That way I can get out the door by 4. I know it's insane. Yeah. I know, but it works.
That's awesome though. Are you a half or full marathoner?
So I did a half marathon. I did a zillion races in my 20s and decided that my mileage is 8 miles. I do 8 miles every day. I don't do more. I don't do less. I'm not fast. I don't do races. That is my time to go out and clear my head. And yeah, it's super boring. It's super boring. And I don't even like crowds, so I don't like races. But I'm going to do nothing good with it besides just do it every day.
Do you listen to music or podcasts?
Yeah, both. My music tastes are terrible, so I refuse to admit what they are. But good podcasts or audiobooks. And then, definitely some music.
I would love to ask you a little bit more about goals and goal setting. Do you set goals at the end of the year or at the beginning of the year? What does that process look like for you if you do? And then if you don't, I guess, how do you progress and feel like you're accomplishing certain milestones?
Sure. So I do set goals, certainly a financial or production goal, which we all do in the business, how many deals you're going to do and what kind of fee production you're going to do. Those kind of things are pretty standard. And that's to a degree motivating. Certainly, I got straight A's in school. I'm not going to miss the A+ of hitting the goal that's been set on that front. But, I would say, I find resolutions to be a little bit silly. If I've got something I want to change or do differently, I could do that today. I don't have to wait for a certain month of the year or anything like that. I would say, my biggest thing, as I think about goals is, okay, what do I want to look different at the end of the year that, doesn't look like that today. So if that's growing client base or getting to know somebody new or spending more time, volunteering or whatever that is, to me, those are kind of the bigger things that I look at. I understand SMART goals are probably the way to do it, but for me, I think, and especially the phase of life that I'm in, I kind of try to keep things pretty simple. I mean, I'm realistic. I know myself. If I said, well, I'm actually going to run 10 miles every morning, like that won't last.
I think you're doing just fine with 8.
Well, but then that's part of it. Like, am I gonna, I don't know, be on the board of directors of some charity? Well, not in the life that I'm in right now with 3 little kids at home and a pretty demanding job. But, I think as long as I can continue to grow my client base and hit my numbers and invest in people at work, that to me is not necessarily a goal as much as it's just kind of the life that I want to lead.
And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that because I think you're a great mentor to a lot of different people. Do you have a mentor or a few mentors that you look up to? Are they in real estate or outside of the industry? What does that relationship look like for you?
Not as much anymore, although I will say, I can point to 2 people that have been were incredibly instrumental in my career. One, in fact, my first job was my manager, and I used to joke that I would run into oncoming traffic for him. That actually was probably true. He's just, and what I learned from him was this. He was excellent at his job, but he cared about people. He was the biggest talker in the world. And you'd go into his office and you'd come out an hour later knowing everything about him and having told him, stories about yourself. And, when we were in a role that we would have to travel a ton, you get to know somebody really well. Had a ton of respect for what he built professionally and the companies that he ran over the years, and just the way that he invested in people. And he had a skill that, God, I wish I had 10% of, which was that he could really get to know a person, invest in a person, and leave a mark on their life in a way that, they see him 10 years later and they in an airport and start crying. They're so happy to see him, that kind of guy. So he was a phenomenal leader, unfortunately passed away. So it's just kind of mind blowing that someone that awesome is not here anymore, but just a phenomenal leader and an incredible man. And so, I saw a guy raise a family of 4 kids and be an incredible leader in a challenging environment sometimes. Obviously, I started work right in the recession, so that wasn't a great time. And then, when I joined Stream, and you work for him now, so but when I joined Stream, I worked under Cannon Green for the first few years. And talk about a person that invests in people. He is always willing to take 5 or 10 minutes to teach. He is incredibly straightforward. He's very, very smart, very thoughtful in the way that he thinks through deals, and can be as serious as a heart attack when he needs to be, and also completely hilarious when he wants. And so from him, I learned, hey, there's a really, really smart guy who also is the life of the party. And, I hadn't seen that before. So, and look, he gave me a ton of opportunities, whether that was putting me in front of new clients, bringing me to meetings, making me go give speeches in front of new people, whatever it was, he gave me a ton of opportunities, and I'm incredibly grateful to him for all of that, which now you work for him. So you're lucky.
Yes, definitely agree with that for sure. There's a lot of great people here that I'm very lucky to be surrounded by. If someone is interested in getting into the industry, especially on the brokerage side of things, what would you advise them? Yeah.
So look, I think if you want to be in brokerage, I think this is a pretty known saying, the barriers to entry to brokerage are fairly low because you eat what you kill. And so a lot of firms are happy to hire you and, here's a phone and good luck, because they don't have to pay you anything. But, I think the ability to stay in the job for 2 to 3 years is where the challenge comes in. So, my advice is thing one, make sure you find a place that has training and people and mentors that are willing to invest in you. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be part of a formal brokerage team per se, but just people that will bring you in on a deal and teach you and show you how things get done. That I think is a huge piece. When you're 22 and you go become a broker, if someone hires you, you don't even know what to do with a client. You got one, now what? And so, the deal process, I think there's a lot of components that, it's important to get taught how to do things the right way. It keeps you out of hot water long term. And then the other thing would be that you just got to keep your head down and grind for 2 or 3 years. And, that's not necessarily the banking world of working 18-hour days or anything crazy like that. But more importantly, getting in early, getting out, making a zillion cold calls, getting used to hearing the word no 100 times and then 100 times more. And then it's year 3 and it's 100 times more. All those things are hard, but all of a sudden you look up and you've got a few clients and they have a repeat business and you know what you're doing every day and you've kind of created a structure for yourself that works. And so, it's, on the front end, I would say get to know everyone you can possibly ever know, because relationships are huge in this business. And then, become a master of market knowledge, because the knowledge is the second piece. And then the third is just hang in there. You got to just hang in for a few years and then it starts to work.
I feel like there's a lot of grit and resiliency that goes into staying in that career path past 2 or 3 years, like you were mentioning.
For sure. And look, to be clear, when I was 22, there was no way I would have been a broker. First of all, as I said, I didn't view myself as a very salesy personality, but also there's a lot of risk inherent in, kind of having income that ebbs and flows and things like that. And I wanted a job that was going to go, it was going really, really hard. I knew what my salary was going to be and figured out what the bonus was. And, that felt very safe to me. And obviously that is a different path than somebody who comes right out of college and goes into brokerage. That's a braver person than I was, that's for sure.
And I think that dovetails nicely with risk and reward. And risk and reward for your personal life and professional life, how do you view that spectrum? How do you get comfortable with it, since you do have to go out and eat what you kill day to day?
Well, I'm by nature a very conservative person financially and personally, so certainly lean more towards the risk aversion side. I would say a couple of things. One, I started brokerage when I had a husband who also works full time. So if I had a bad month, I wasn't out on the street. So I had a pretty good hedge there, and I can't act like I didn't there. I would say the bigger piece for me, and this is just really business development, is being willing to throw yourself out there, make phone calls, ask for business, be kind of, in my mind, annoying. Hey, I'm here again. You want to talk to me now? Yes. And that works. I mean, that is the reality, is you have to do a lot of kind of aggressive pursuit, and aggressive can look a lot of different ways, right? There's guys in our office who will call you and tell you to call the police. That's obviously not me, but I'm only slightly exaggerating. But, I would say for me, being, you get told no, hey, I'm going with the other group over and over. And, there's a lot of risk kind of personally in that. You just kind of have to build a thicker skin for that. Now, I will say, and I told somebody who was just getting into the business, things like cold calling on tenants, the good news and the bad news. The good news is that it works, and the bad news is that it works. And so I've won, some really great tenant relationships and client relationships from knocking on front doors of warehouses. And as much as that's not all that fun, well, crud, I actually won accounts, so I better keep doing it because it works. And so, I think that you just kind of have to get used to that piece of it. And look, the rewards, as rare as they are, or can be sometimes, they're fun, and you got to be able to enjoy that as well.
Well, Sarah, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Gosh, I don't think so. Now do I get to interview you and you tell me how to be Jenkins vendor?
Thank you so much for your time. Super interesting and really fascinating career path. And obviously you're very well respected, both at Stream and in the DFW market at large as well.
Well, that's kind to say. I kind of feel like I've got people fooled, but I'll take it.